Thank you, Shelley. Let me just turn this on. Yeah, so I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the experiences. That was really what I was tasked to do, to show a lot of what's kind of out there. Our belief is that this is really about scaling creativity and bringing a lot of revenue for publishers, great experiences for end users, and then also, of course, the agencies and brands profit by that. I mean, reality bites. If you look at what you're seeing here, this is your 728 by 90 on a beautiful publication GQ, and that's actually a real creative served into a safe frame that's a 728 by 90. 33 billion spent. This is the IAB's on display. 3 billion on Rich. That's 90% is spent on this, and that's actually a JPEG. So we're looking at floating banners, 30 billion market size, that we really have an opportunity for with the new standards. So it's a big market for all of us to ride that wave. This is a programmatic ad that we did run and ran it through a DSP that actually fills it. It's a 10 by 1, and actually on the right that's a 3 by 1. So it actually manipulates from a 10 by 1 to an 8 by 1 by 3 by 1, and we saw 4 times the performance. And so performance meaning more hovering, because it's a bigger unit, you need to get a lot more hovering as opposed to before. So even the standards from visibility is going to move towards engagement. So when we think of measurement, we're looking at an engagement play, really, as they get much bigger like that. And the key is, of course, keeping them lean. So responsive ads, we are a fluid design platform. We like to make it fast and easy to deliver and optimize the most impactful and engaging creatives that work everywhere. This is a real creative. It's infinite sizes and infinite versions, so dynamically bringing down all the different sizes and elements on the fly. We've been around for quite some time and have served over 23,000 campaigns that are fluid, that are edge-to-edge campaigns. And so really it's one click, you get all the IAB sizes. The industry vision is, how does this work everywhere, across all these different channels. We recently were certified on Apple News, and it's quite complex when you have all the different SDKs and delivery across all those different channels. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about 5 different areas on our key learnings with this implementation. The first is the size complexity. With the promise of the new standards, we're actually looking at 18 proportions. Let's see, is it going to click? Yeah, 10 standard kind of proportions, and then 8 full flex, including the landscape and portrait. That's a lot. I think a lot of it was through the transition guidelines of making sure that there were similar proportions to the existing fixed sizes. But what we're starting to see is that there's actually a sweet spot around them. The other is just the spec actually talks about small and large, whereas it's really about mobile versus desktop. So what are the flex sizes that work really good for mobile versus what work really good for desktop, and keeping that simple. And then the match. We're finding that there's a new flex size that wasn't part of the flex specification, the 3 by 1. So now as this emerges, those standards are going to have to emerge, and hopefully, so the bottom line to all of this is that this is a little bit confusing. You have all the existing sizes. Now you have these 18 new sizes, mobile, and then all the different K-weights. And so it's not an easy thing. So basically simplification and bundle, thinking desktop and mobile as you look at the flex, and then really on the main usage. So I put together this chart. If you look at where they're going to deliver on the page, what's really interesting is the side panel is starting to disappear in a lot of sites. We're seeing above the fold, top of the site, middle of the page, and then bottom. Clean, beautiful executions. The side panel, will this actually take flex standards? I don't know. I mean, the 300 by 600 works really well there, and there's a stickiness. So I think it's got to be something that brings new value. So I think the vertical flex might, in some ways, might not be as promising as the horizontal flex. And so where we're seeing it, and what's here actually in red, these are new to the standards. So believe it or not, there's an 18 by 1, which is basically 100 high. You're looking at a scenario where just the 100 comes from the 728 by 90, but really having something that thinly goes across the top. And so the 10 by 1 is great, but it's still 180 high. So you're looking at like a sweet spot of 200 across the top. So you still fill with the coalition of better ads, but then actually switching at the different, from desktop tablets. So the 10 by 1, 8 by 1, and then on mobile, the 4 by 1, if you look at 300, you're still looking at 300, you're looking at about 60 high. It's really small. I think we should just sunset that old 6x1 and that small mobile banner. I mean, it really doesn't give that kind of impact. The 100 high or 3x1 really works really well. And then if you look at the middle of the page, you're looking at sweet spots around 450. And the 16x9 is really become kind of a nice standard. There's a company called Vox that has the concert unit, which is a 16x9 that fits in the middle of the page in banner. It works really beautiful. And so we're seeing that in the middle, you're getting that. And then for the full flex, this is going to be a challenge. You're going to need platforms like Flexitive, like ResponsiveAds, like others that can give you the ability to fit all those different screen sizes. If you create a 3x4 or a 4x3, you have to have all these multi-sizes that kind of dynamically choose, so it is only a one tag or a fluid solution. It's really hard to do flex when you're talking about kind of full flex. It really is that kind of multi-size. Whereas we're seeing a lot of 3x4s on mobile. And so summary, if you kind of keep it simple, find a couple of those sizes that really work well, and then really grow from there. Next is the chicken and egg. Who flexes? We're working we were called in to act as a consultancy for a publisher that was getting all of these zip files that were coming in from the agency that actually flexed. And they thought they could upload that HTML creative directly into GAM and make it work. The problem is you can't upload HTML creatives into a non-safe frame environment. It's not regulated, it's not allowed by Google. So you have to turn off the safe frame. When you turn off the safe frame, you can't upload an HTML creative. So it's only a tag solution that comes in. The reason for that, that's the whole purpose of the safe frame. If you upload a zip file, the safe frames prevent from malware. So the industry itself, when it comes to when the agencies build things in zip files and upload versus how publishers handle things in terms of the manipulation of the safe frame and the flex frame, it's like who flexes? So now we have a scenario where the zip came in, we actually set it up for them so it could actually flex, but then it landed on the page and now the actual GAM iframe didn't flex. So do you start putting code on the publisher's page to flex it? So now you think of it like water in a cup. The water is the fluid or the flex, and the cup is the frame. So if the cup comes with the water on the agency side, now it arrives on the publisher side, that's the cup, then it needs to manipulate the frame on the publisher side. Or you have a zip file that's just the water, and the publishers set up their own cups. And then the cup itself determines what fills the water. And I think we're going to probably see a combination of those as it evolves, but this has been, I think, the biggest problem with the adoption of the standard. It's who flexes. Who makes this frame flex and how it flexes? And of course, 80% of display is coming from Google. So there's kind of your answer, is that they're going to have eventually come out with a solution on this. But in the meantime, we've been doing it quite seamlessly by working as a third-party ad server. We've been an ad server from the beginning that actually manipulates the frame on the fly, and that's how we did it programmatically. A lot of the header bidding providers actually asked for the safe frame to be turned off. So that's kind of the challenge. We are doing some kind of unique stuff internally. We want to make it available and free, open, on some publisher-side code that we've been working on that we want to make available, probably do it through the IAB, that can actually support some of that. So if you are a flex file or you're coming in as a third party, as a tag, it has to flex that, and the publisher needs to know that it can flex, so the publisher's going to flex. The next is this low latency loading. We have these huge sizes. If it's a third party ad server, it's really easy to do latency control because you have your load and your subload. So it can really be done quite easily. So third-party ad servers have been kind of the first play here. But most agencies are used to building and uploading an HTML creative. And so to do that with these bigger sizes, it's just going to be heavier because you can't dynamically turn things on and off unless you create an XML script that then pulls in different files from the zip file. So you're actually building in a little third-party ad server in the zip file. So it gets to be quite complex. We have our own library that does this called Radical. That does the dynamic loading right in the zip file or in the third-party ad server. So companies that have ads like Criteo that actually do a lot of dynamic loading and a lot of intelligence machine learning on that are doing that in that way. It's you have to have that library that does that. And then the challenges for ad call timing. This is a key issue, is that most of the ads are loaded after the page loads. So how you actually set up your ad server environment to dynamically, once, you know, with what's in view, and then as the ad loads. If you wait for the whole page to load and then you even load some of these larger sized ads, you're gonna see 50% viewability, even if it's above the fold. Even if you stay at 300-400K, you gotta work on the timing in terms of the ad serving timing and when that call comes to actually get that efficient 70% viewability above the fold. And so 1 second load significantly changes your viewability. And we see this, depending on who the publishers we work with, their pages are a mess. And you know, they'll get 40% viewability above the fold, and it's just because of the way they have all their scripted the pages. They really have to clean up the sites. And then, of course, the initial load and subload. So I'm going to show a demonstration here as well, but it's good to go under 100K regardless of the ad if you're going to build it out. That's kind of our best practices. And then usually it's lighter backgrounds, lighter images, and then actually bringing in you know, the heavier backgrounds and images after it loads. And if you do video, it's got to be progressive. It's got to be, you know, smaller video that loads when we talk about video. So this is, I'm going to show you, this is a 4x1, you know, on golf. So this again is an example with animation. Okay, and then they have a bunch of them, so you can see that. Go to the next one. This is one of our favorites. I think this is one of the best performing types of ads where the entire ad becomes a video. So, you know, edge-to-edge video. This is, again, you're looking at an 8x1 and a 4x1 here. I'll just switch over to the next one. This is a video. This is kind of interesting because there are two different Flex implementations. You have the closed state, which is then, and the open state is actually also proportions. As you see here, it's shrinking as it's going down in the open state. So both the open state and the closed state are both two different flexes brought together with video. This is another local publisher. We've been doing a lot with dynamic loading. This is actually a carousel that's actually pulling in all the articles and everything through Google Sheets. So you set up everything for a small agency. Remax as an agent, they set up all their images on Google Sheets, and it's dynamically being pulled in. And we've been working on how do you get the optimization on this? By using the publisher's website for all of the images has been kind of a key, because they want to have theirs loading. So all the images are actually hosted on the publisher's website being pulled in. We're not even hosting those images, but then you use those domains, you load them in the Google Sheet, and they're bringing them right in. So it's kind of a fun kind of implementation. This is one that I see that just performed really well. Again, it's a top 10x1, which is just a quiz. And then because we're at Google, I had to show something Google. This was under NDA 2 years ago, so the NDA's over. But it's actually a parallax. This is for the Pixel, as you can see here, coming in, and that ran 2 years ago on the Guardian, 2.5 years ago actually. So so these implementations are out there. The critical thing is, how do you get the scale programmatically? Direct is great. It's hard to scale it, but how do you build this programmatically? And so we've been doing really advanced implementations. This is one that actually contains content itself, dynamically bringing in articles. So kind of blending ads with content marketing. We see that's a huge future, especially all the different things that you can do. When you have a bigger footprint, it lends itself to become more appified, where you can do a lot more with content. And then this is something that I will. This is actually another ad service, not Google, where we are actually able to manipulate the safe frame and then build in. There's a full page kind of we call it our page scroller, which is kind of full page in the unit itself. Performs extremely well. And it's interesting. The Coalition for Better Ads basically says it should not be on top, but if it's behind the page, kind of a Celtra inner scroller, we call it the page scroller, kind of a format that actually has been one of the most that has been performing the best. And we have a lot of companies that say, how can we get that programmatic? We really want that programmatic. We got 3 companies that ask us, how do we set that up programmatically? And so that's the challenge, is to do it. We have to do it in an environment where the safe frame is turned off until we can get the flexible safe frames. So overall, where we've seen this is that if you go with these edge-to-edge responsive creatives, you're definitely going to see a 5-time performance, especially engagement 4 times. But if you start building more immersive, where they're appified or dynamic content, you really start to become game changing. And so that's really where we see a lot of it, where it has to go, is with the immersive responsive creatives. And so, one last thing is, since this is about measurement as well, is when you have a bigger footprint, you really need to start to look at things like engagement. This is actually the Wendy's that I showed you. And if you look here, the users are actually hovering over the French fries. 69% of users' eyes follow their mouse. So engagement tracking it's research that came out of Boston. The mouse is the poor man's eye tracker. And so actually hovering over those French fries was an indication that that's what they want. And so, I think that becomes a really interesting kind of a next step, is how analytics really integrate into the creative, the marriage between creativity and analytics that links into all of the new standards, the OM standards, and that with the actual creative design tools, I think is really where the IAB is going to facilitate a lot of this. So it's really quite exciting. I think we can go after that $30 billion market. So size does matter. If you have a bigger footprint, you're going to definitely see at least 30%. As they say, it's just more area to touch and click, but it just blends in beautifully on the page. It really performs much better. Engaging content, videos, animation, parallax, and then really multi-content, that are expandables as well. And so, yeah, let me just quickly show you something in the tool. How am I for time? Shelly, am I good? So there we go. So I'm just going to pull you in and show you that Pepsi. If you want, I can actually pull up that page, the PA Now page. So this is the actual page. And as you can see here, we have a 10x1 up here. It's flexing for that in there. And then this is the 1x1 on the right with video. And then this is just the full in the page. And so the issue with this is what I really wanted to show was how we kind of set this up dynamically. So this is our tool. And as you can see here, we do have image renditioning, where it automatically creates all the different images, sizes on the fly, so you can get really light images or heavy images. But right here, as you can see here, the background image, we have two of them. One of them's turned on, that's 100K, and then this is 5K. So actually having the ability to go in and if I just go into this image here in the settings, we can set it up, include it in the initial load for the light one, and then for the heavier one, on the afterload. So let me just go there. Yeah, that was set for the load after the first render. So you can dynamically set what you want loading dynamically. So this is really where third-party ad serving really brings a lot of the value. But you lay out a bunch of different sizes, automatically gives you this kind of fully fluid, and then you can basically export or grab a one tag to actually do that. And so you don't have to be a pro, you just have to be a graphic designer. We do have ad ops actually using a lot of the templates as well, surprisingly. But that's pretty much it. Our preview page here, you can see we lay them out by 5 shapes. We use the IAB stuff, the proportions for the shapes for different layouts, and then from that you basically get all of these are all of the new standards. So going from 10x1 all the way to these here, I do think that these are not as important as these up here, as the horizontal ones moving forward. So that is, let me see if I have anything else. So that's it. Thank you very much. You can reach me at Matt@ResponsiveAds, as well as, let me just have one other slide here. So if you want to get, we'll definitely provide, because this is part of the IAB, we do free Q&A. So if you have a question, just send it to iab@responsiveads.com, and you can see we have hundreds that are going to be growing on our YouTube showcase. And we are going to be launching this Publisher Flex code, kind of offering that hopefully open source, as well as Agency Flex code as well, to make that kind of, how do those two things flex, that hopefully will continue to work with how Google evolves this. So thank you very much, and appreciate the opportunity to share.
Thanks, Matt. There was an interesting story about the 1x3. So when we were developing the new ad portfolio, somebody had proposed 3x1 and the group was debating it. So it was one company that was already using something like that, of that size. So we asked them to, I asked them to show me what it was and what the actual dimensions and all